2 in the morning, you are still tossing and turning, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling of a dead silent room. Your mind is playing the morning's terrible conversation on an endless loop. You chew on every unfair word they threw at you, muttering the razor-sharp comebacks you should have said in the moment. Without realizing it, your hand curls into a fist, squeezing so hard your fingernails dig into your palm until it almost bleeds. In our last episode, we learned that compassion without wisdom is self-destruction. Sometimes, a truly kind person must learn to hiss, like a snake, to protect their boundaries. But today, we have to face an internal trap, one that is far more subtle and far more toxic. Look at yourself right in this moment. You managed to keep your mouth shut. You held back the bitter words. You stopped your hand from striking back. But why, deep down? Is your mind screaming? Why are you counting the seconds, waiting for the person who hurt you to suffer a heavy consequence? In today's story, the Wheel of Dharma invites you to look closely at a trap called silent endurance. It is a state where you think you are practicing patience, acting like a good person, building good karma. But in reality, you are just holding a burning hot coal, crushing it inside your own fist. In the morning at the office, you bow your head and say yes to the unreasonable insults of your boss. In the evening at home, you bite your lip, turn away, and swallow your tears while a partner grinds you down. Faced with this pressure, you tell yourself, I will just keep quiet to keep the peace. I am a spiritual person. I will not stoop to their level. Karma will get them eventually. You willingly put on the cloak of the noble victim. You believe your silence is a sign of virtue. You think you are taking the hit to keep everyone else comfortable. But a perfectly still surface cannot hide the violent current tearing underneath. The fake peace of the day is stripped away at night. That unvented frustration begins to ferment into poison. You go online, typing into anonymous chat groups to curse the one who hurt you. You punish your loved ones with heavy, exhausted sighs. And most terrifying of all, you begin to feed a secret joy. You crave the day your enemy collapses. You wait for karma to drop a hammer on their head, just so the world will validate that your silent suffering was right all along, that you are the truly righteous one. And then you realize a brutal truth. The harder you try to endure, the more exhausted you become. The more you play the role of the gentle saint, the darker and more bitter your mind grows. You do not find peace after holding your tongue. You only find your life force draining away, dying a little more every day under the weight of a ticking time bomb right inside your chest. Let's be honest with each other for a moment. When you grit your teeth through an injustice, telling yourself that karma will punish them, do you really think you are being noble? You are not. That waiting game is actually hatred, carefully disguised. You have not forgiven anyone. You are just delaying the strike. You have outsourced your revenge to a supernatural force, just to satisfy your own bruised ego. You are feeding a massive ego by playing the role of a magnificent victim. And as long as that massive ego stands tall, every malicious word will act like an arrow shot straight into it. You turn your own mind into a gladiator arena, where you are both the judge and the wounded. You grip the burning coal of resentment, planning to throw it at your enemy one day, but your own hand has already burned to ash. That is the endurance of an ordinary, suffering mind, a deadly suppression. So, what does true patience actually look like? To find the answer, we must step back thousands of years. According to an ancient tale, deep within a silent, isolated forest, an ascetic sat in meditation. His face was as perfectly still as an unrippled lake. People called him the ascetic of patience. Suddenly, that quiet peace was torn apart by frantic shouting. King Calibu, a tyrant drunk on wine and senseless jealousy, stormed into the clearing. Seeing his own royal attendants sitting respectfully, listening to the ascetic teach, the king erupted in a blind rage. With bloodshot eyes, he drew his sword, pointed it straight at the innocent man and snarled, "What is your practice?" The ascetic slowly opened his eyes. Without a single trace of panic, he answered, "Patience," feeling his supreme royal ego challenged by this unshakable stillness. The king went mad. He ordered the ascetic to be tortured. He commanded his guards to cut off the monk's hands and feet, just to see if this so-called patience could be broken. And then, a truly earth-shattering contrast unfolded. The man with all the power, the weapons, and the viciousness was the king. Yet, it was the king who was thrashing about, screaming, his forehead dripping with sweat, his mind incinerated by the fire of his own hatred. Meanwhile, the ascetic, though his physical body was enduring unimaginable agony, remained entirely unmoved in his mind. He did not scream. He did not curse the tyrant. And he certainly did not smile bitterly and think, "Just wait, karma will strike you down." How could a human being made of flesh and blood maintain such perfect stillness in the face of absolute evil? The king's sword could slice through his physical body, but why couldn't it touch his mind? It was because he had completely realized the truth of non-self. To the ascetic, this physical body was temporary anyway. Deep down, there was no solid, separate ego to be hurt, insulted, or destroyed. He looked at the crazed king, not with hatred, but with profound wisdom, and with a deep pity for a living being who was currently burning alive in the fire of his own ignorance. Imagine it like this. If someone shoots a poisoned arrow at you, it can only hit you if you have set up a target for it to strike. That target is our own massive ego. When pushed, an ordinary person reacts by turning themselves into a giant bullseye, woven together by thoughts like, "I am suffering, I am so pitiful, I am the victim of an evil person." Because there is a massive I standing there, taking the hit, those insults and injustices have a place to land. That is where the resentment is born. The ascetic, however, had completely dismantled the target called the self. King Calibu's poisoned arrows of malice simply flew into the empty void. Without an ego, what is there to feel psychological pain? What is there to hold a grudge? That is the true patience of the wise. Now, let's go back to your dark room. You are not facing a bloodthirsty tyrant. No one is using a sword to destroy your physical body. But why, every single night, do you voluntarily gather the careless words and cruel actions of others from the day, only to use them to carve up your own mind? Waiting for karma to strike down your enemy does not ease your pain even a little bit. It only proves that your mind is still locked in a prison of the past. You do not have to force yourself to become a selfless saint overnight. But right now, at the very least, have some genuine compassion for yourself. Your silent endurance has been exhausting enough. Stop using hatred to punish yourself for someone else's mistakes. Freedom is not found in the joy of watching your enemy collapse. It is found in the exact moment you realize you are holding a burning coal, and you decide to loosen your grip. But here, a much larger question opens up. Letting go of internal resentment does not mean you should continue to be a doormat for others to walk all over. If you do not fight back with anger, and you do not grit your teeth in silent endurance, how does a person practicing true patience actually confront evil? Does selfless stillness mean letting evil run wild? We will search for the ultimate answer in the next and final episode of this series. But for tonight, look down at your palm, marked with those bleeding nail prints. Slowly open your hand. Let that blackened, burning coal of resentment fall away. Close your eyes and feel the cool breeze of freedom. Let it go. You have been burned enough.